So let's take a few deep breaths. Breathing in and breathing out. As we move into that quiet place in consciousness, as we move into the stillness, a place where we know God is, I am, we are, and we are one. As we continue to breathe into that center, we bring into our consciousness all those parts of our life, all the joys, all the regrets, all the laughter and all the tears. We surround it all with love. We surround all of it, the good and the not so good, with our acceptance, our knowing that this is indeed what life is. Those things we enjoy, those things we don't. We can be at peace with it all. When we greet all of it with a deep breath, a simple knowing, this too is God. This too is good. This too is for me. And I demand to see the blessing in it for me. Those words spoken so many years ago by one of our great teachers. Here in the silence, we can include all of our life in our compassion, in that sphere of love that we hold. As we breathe and continue to breathe in and breathe out, we can feel that circle of love, that circle of light within us, including all we are, no judgment, no regret. And as we breathe, we can allow that circle of love, that circle of acceptance to expand, to include everyone we are here with today, this church, this community. We breathe into our love for all that is here in this city. All the old and the young, all the black and the white, all the men, the women, everyone. Everyone. No matter what they believe, no matter how they live. Our love is big enough for that because God's love is big enough for that. And as we breathe into and fill that circle, that city of love, we can expand that even further to all of our state and all of our nation. No matter where they are, no matter what they're like, no matter what they're doing or how different they are. We can love all of our brothers and sisters today, right now, as we breathe in to this sphere of love, this echo of God that radiates from us, from our being. As we breathe in that love and as we exhale, we can push our circle out even further across the oceans and around the earth. To all people, all beings, to our very planet. We can include everything and everyone in the sphere of our love and acceptance if we just breathe into it and allow and accept. What a wide, wonderful world it is. And how glorious is the rainbow of people and plants and animals that occupy it. What a wonderful thing. What a miracle we all are. This life is. No matter what. No matter what. As we breathe in this moment, this precious moment, this holy, sacred moment, and we breathe out love for all that is, we remember, this is God. All light, all love, all one. And so we spend a moment with all that is, in love, in the silence. In this quiet time, as our consciousness, as our love encompasses this world, we may move over places that are yet struck by fear, that have yet been harmed by violence. For those people who grieve today in Nice, France. For people in Dallas, in St. Paul and Baton Rouge, in Orlando, and in all the places that are hurt. We allow our love to begin to heal the wounds, to shine the light into the darkness. to be a balm that soothes, to be that which binds, casts out fear, erases doubt. We allow the love in our hearts to flow unimpeded across this world, across the universe. We allow ourselves to be one with God, and in that oneness, in that sacred presence, we know only love. Love is all there is. So it is. She did it to me again. Okay, it's going to be one of those days. Wow. It's amazing how a song touches us sometimes. And as I think about what we're talking about today, I think that one sums it up pretty nicely. Nobody gets there until we all do, because we are all one. And that's the point of it. Today, what we're doing is continuing our series on our core values, and we all affirmed those at the beginning of the service. This week, we are talking about the core value, inclusive. And, it's funny, I make these schedules of what I want to talk about up pretty far in advance. And I had no idea that what would, the things that have transpired in the past, couple weeks and months could have possibly happened. That there would be as much hate expressed around the world, as much againstness acted out, both in our country and abroad. So it's certainly timely. But as with our other core values, what I want to talk about is not just about what inclusiveness means, because I could probably talk about that for several weeks. But I really want to focus on what it means to us as a church, what it means to the life of this church, and what it means to us as members of this church when we say that we are inclusive. Sharif Abdullah says in Practicing Inclusivity that inclusivity can be summed up in one statement: we are one. We are one. And if there was ever a core message to unity, that's it. We are one. Also, importantly, being inclusive is the opposite of being exclusive. And being exclusive is almost how we are wired culturally. And I will talk about that a little bit more. So for us as a church to say this is what we mean when we say inclusion, this is something I think that we mean. We embrace all people as fellow children of God, regardless of our seeming differences. We are also open to considering new and different ideas, beliefs, and ways of being. We include all of God's creation in our sphere of acceptance. So, in addition to defining inclusion for us, we want to ask ourselves why. Why did we make that one of our core values? And then take a look at what does it mean for us as a church, and what does it mean for each and every one of us as individuals. So, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, when I was talking about healing, if we look at unity's first principle, there is one presence and one power in the universe and in our lives: God, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. that one power is expressing is each and every one of us. Because if God is everywhere in the universe, he's in each and every one of us. At some level, every idea is a divine idea. Now, some people can twist divine ideas and they come up looking pretty repugnant. But every idea has its beginnings in God, just as each and every one of us has our beginnings in God, not in sin. Amen? So, if we can accept, and we may at first have to accept it mentally before we can actually get ourselves to believe it. If we can accept that everything has its beginnings in God, if everything has its roots in the divine, then we can accept all things as part of God, including the things that seem to be in opposition. I've recently been watching a show on Netflix that's not my normal cup of tea. I've been watching Longmire, which is a crime drama, and I normally, I'm not into those things. And it's kind of a Western, and I really don't like Westerns. But the characters in this show are particularly compelling. The sheriff of this town in Wyoming he's been walking through his grief from the death of his wife. And it's a layer that's underneath everything that he does. But anyway, I was watching the other night, and one of the characters said something that caught my ear. He said, peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the acceptance of conflict. And I kind of hit pause and said, I need to write that down. I don't think we're ever all going to agree on everything. In fact, I don't think we're ever all going to agree on anything. But to be inclusive is to be able to say, and that's okay. That's the way it is. We can all still get along even when we don't agree. It's when we start ramming our ideals down other people's throats that we run into problems. When we're afraid that if everybody doesn't agree with us, something bad will happen to us, something will get taken from us, something won't end up being given to us that we think that we deserve, that's when bad things start to happen. That's when people start shooting people and blowing people up and running over them with trucks and all the other crazy things that we do to harm one another, to try to make people believe the way that we believe. Now, finding that peace in conflict and being able to be at the center doesn't mean that we give up the right to choose and say, it's okay if you believe that, but I'm going to believe this. It's okay if you like chocolate, but I like vanilla or cinnamon buns or cake batter, whatever flavor you like. We don't all have to like the same flavors. That's okay. Doesn't make preferences wrong. So when we look at the beginnings of Christianity and about inclusion, and it doesn't matter whether you consider yourself a Christian or not, unity was founded on the teachings of Jesus and on how we believe that they were fulfilled through mental healing and all of the concepts that came with that. But Jesus was radically inclusive. It's funny, how many of you were here the weekend that Christine and I came to try out to be the ministers of this church a little over 3 years ago? Not a whole lot of you still here. Thank you. Thank you for hanging in for the whole ride. I deeply appreciate and honor all of you. You may remember that what I talked about was being radically inclusive or radical inclusivity. I can't remember which the talk title was. But I talked about how Jesus was radically inclusive for his time. He was teaching us a new way of being like God. And I've talked about this a lot, the imitatio Dei, how we are like God. And up until then, it was be holy as God is holy. And for the people of Jesus' time, that meant living by a bunch of purity laws. You didn't, touch people who were lepers or women most of the time. So many things were unclean. You can go through Leviticus and find a bajillion things, including blended fabrics and shrimp, which we have a lot of in Alabama. But Jesus said, no, that's not the deal. God's not like that. God is compassionate. He actually used the Aramaic word that means womb-like, right? Encompassing, loving, supporting, nurturing, including. And so instead of shunning people like lepers and beggars and prostitutes and tax collectors, he sat down and broke bread with them. One of the most intimate things that they could do in public life in those days. And practiced a radical inclusivity. So if we call ourselves students of him, if we say he's our way shower, then certainly it is appropriate for us to be inclusive, even radically inclusive, for what that means today. Because what it means today and what it meant 2,000 years ago may be a little different. But in some cases, it's very much the same. So then we ask ourselves, what are we going to do as a church? How are we going to show people that we really mean business when we say we're inclusive? If we say this church is inclusive, what does that look like when you show up and sit here, when you guys are out in the lobby after the service, when you come together for our classes, or when you meet people in the community? Well, we have a statement of inclusivity that's on our website. I'm curious, how many of you have read it? 1, 2. Okay, our website is www.unitybham.org. All right? Just in case you are ever wondering about what is going on here, we have our calendar on there. We have all kinds of neat stuff. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the heart of it says, know as you read these words that whoever you are, wherever you have been, whatever you have done, and whichever path you are following on your soul's journey, you are welcome here at Unity of Birmingham. Know that you are honored here just the way God made you, without regard to race, color, gender, age, creed, religion, national origin, ethnicity, physical disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity. You are safe with us. And we welcome you to pray with us, worship with us, and be in community with us, whether it is for a Sunday or for a lifetime. Unity of Birmingham offers practical spiritual teachings that empower abundant and meaningful living. We believe that prayer works. We help people have a stronger connection with God every day. That's what it says. So we want to really live that. When people who look different, act different, smell different, seem different, show up. People have different beliefs. We want to make them just as welcome as we would want to be. And at the heart of inclusivity is that lesson that we call the golden rule, but it has been taught in almost every wisdom tradition out there. The Hindus, the Buddhists, the Muslims, the Christians, we all teach the same thing, and worded different ways, but essentially it's treat other people as you would want to be treated. Why? Well, that goes back to what inclusive is, because we're all one. Because we're all one, I'm going to treat you the way I would want to be treated because you are me. You're part of me. We are one. We are one. So we don't want to be the church like the church the cowboy walked into. Cowboy walks into a church, and it's a kind of an uptown church. And he's wearing, some worn out jeans and some ragged boots and kind of a greasy old hat. And he goes in to sit down, and nobody wants to sit near him. Nobody says hello to him. And at the end of the service, the minister walks up to him and says, hey, can I ask you a favor? And the cowboy says, yeah, sure. And the minister says, before you come next week, have a little talk with God. Spend some time in prayer and, see if you can't come up with, what you think might be proper attire for this church. Cowboy says, okay, I'll do that. So the next Sunday he comes back and he shows up for the service and he's wearing the exact same ragged jeans and, beaten up boots and holy hat. And he was once again completely shunned and ignored. And after the service is over, the pastor walks back up to him and says, I thought I asked you to speak to God before you came back to our church. And the cowboy says, well, I did. And the pastor says, well, if you spoke to God, then, did he tell you what the proper attire was for this church? The cowboy says, well, sir, God told me that she didn't have a clue what proper attire was for this church because she hadn't been in it. So what we want to do is we don't want to be that church. We want to be that church that God lives in, that welcomes people and that is willing to listen to different ideas, different expressions of the divine, and quite frankly, different expressions of pain. One of the things that we have to do to enable that is to make a commitment to communicating with one another and educating one another about who we are and about what it is that's going on with us. Last Wednesday night, we had a really great example of exactly that. We canceled our normal second Wednesday night potluck in class that we've been doing all year on Robert Brummett's Living Originally. And instead, we got together to meet and talk about what it means to be in community, in all that's going on around us, what it means to be black, what it means to be white, what it means to feel like you're on the outside, to not know that there's an outside. And it was a remarkable evening. And everyone who was there said, gee, we'd like to do this again. So we're going to do something like that again. I've actually reached out to Faith in Action Alabama to see if we can maybe co-sponsor something that will address some of the issues around discrimination, maybe get some of the other faiths involved. I would like to invite some people from the law enforcement community to come in and hear the things that we heard on Wednesday. Hearing from a member of the black community who said that she has never in her entire life felt safe. That's kind of hard to hear. But we have to be willing to hear things like that if we are going to truly learn to be inclusive. And we have to be brave enough to speak them. And I applaud everyone who was there and who was brave enough to say things that they might not have said in public before. Said to white people before, said to black people before. It's wonderful, and it's just a beginning. And it's something that we can do as we move out into the community. I would encourage everyone, if you're still in the workforce, if you ever have the opportunity to get together as a company or as a unit, whatever type of workplace you have, if you can speak to your boss and say, hey, there's a lot going on. I think maybe it would do us all some good if we could talk about this, air our feelings about this, see where everybody's at. Make sure that we all understand that we're all coming from a shared knowledge of where we are, who we are, how we've been hurt, how we can be helped. So what we as a church want to do is make space for conversations like that, even when they're uncomfortable, especially when they're uncomfortable. And you'll be hearing some more as we go forward about discussions around many of those issues, whether it's race, gender identity, sexuality, all those places where people have been throwing rocks at each other. It would be nice to get everybody in a room without their rocks and let everybody just have a chat, maybe break some bread together. It's powerful. So the last thing that I want to talk about is some of those things that we do as individuals and the way that being inclusive or being exclusive shows up in our lives, in our behaviors, and in choices that we can make each and every day. Living by the golden rule is a big piece of that. Making that choice as we interact with others. Is this the way I would want to be treated in every interaction that we have? Whether it's how we call our partner to breakfast or our kids to breakfast, how we interact on the street, on the freeway, in the grocery store, in the parking lot, in the workplace, here at church, wherever we may be. How would we like to be treated? Can we find it within ourselves, even in those moments when we feel stressed, even in those moments when there is conflict? Can we be in acceptance and find peace? Or do we need to jump into that conflict, throw some gas on the fire? Part, maybe all, of what feeds this is the fact that we live in a culture of disinclusion, a culture of disconnection. And what I mean by that is, if we look back at our culture in history and actually look at some of the Aboriginal cultures around the world, what we find is that children are taught from infancy on up that they are part of something larger. They are part of a family, of a tribe, that they are connected to the earth, that they're connected to their source of food and water, that they are connected to spirit in some way or another. They are always a part of something. They are never alone. That's not what we teach our kids. That's not what we were taught. We were taught to, stand up straight on our own, to go out and conquer the world, to, in school, we start the competition against other people as soon as we get to kindergarten. It's like, who got the gold star today? And then we carry it forward. Who wins the spelling bee? Who wins the science fair? Who wins the track meet? Who wins the football championship? Who wins? And then it's who wins the scholarship to get into the best college. And once you get out of the best college, who wins the highest paying job? We even start using the word exclusive like it's a great thing. You get into the most exclusive boarding schools, the most exclusive colleges. They get you the most exclusive employment, where you go to the most exclusive restaurants and you vacation at the most exclusive resorts. Because other people don't deserve that. They're not you. Are they? And we teach that that's the goal. We teach that that's what good is. It affects us as human beings at every level. We have become disconnected from our bodies. So many people go to a hospital here in Birmingham You'll see so many people that had no idea the things they were putting in their bodies were connected to their health. I don't know how I got this heart problem, says the person who is at least 100 pounds overweight. They have no idea. People have no idea that putting junk into their bodies and not exercising is not good for them. They're disconnected. We develop negative self-images about our bodies. We think of our bodies as the enemy. Does this resonate with anyone? Right? So what would it be like to be inclusive with our own bodies? We learn that we are inextricably connected with our bodies. We learn to have a positive self-image, whatever it is. Doesn't mean we're going to stay 100 pounds overweight, but we can still feel positive about our body wherever it is. The reason Myrtle Fillmore was able to heal herself from tuberculosis when it was a death sentence was that she had a positive image about her body. She talked to every cell in her body and told it she loved it. She was sorry that she had ever thought anything negative about it. And she thought love through every part of her body until she was healed. It can be done if we include our bodies. Many of us make our minds our enemies. I hear people talking about my depression, my paranoia, my ego, like it's, again, the enemy. Anything that we make an enemy, we are excluding. And we are creating a problem with whatever that thing is. That's how we end up addicted to things. Including our mind in what we do. The first thing we need to do is we need to become self-aware. We need to know what it is we are thinking. And we need to begin to exercise choice in the thoughts that we have. Some of you may say, well, gee, that's just impossible. My mind is just doing what it's doing. But the truth is, we are the boss. We are the boss. If we begin with meditation, we can kind of slow things down and step back from the mind stream. And eventually, we can learn to include our mind as our friend, even if it's filled with things that we may find upsetting. Our emotions have also been affected by this culture of disinclusion, of disconnection. We have kids now who have become so numb emotionally that they cut themselves just to try to feel something. Anything. We have other people who do their best to take on other people's pain, whether it is through codependency or sometimes even in what seems like a positive career choice. Some of the counselors and psychotherapists out there are really people who are doing their best to take on other people's pain because they're not feeling. They're trying to. And what inclusive emotional looks like for us as human beings? Probably the healthiest way is simply to say it's being able to include all of our emotions, but not to camp out in any of them. When we feel joy, we don't try to hang on to it because we know it'll come again. That one event that made us feel joy, it's okay to let go of it. More joy is on the way. When we're in grief, it's okay to grieve. There's nothing wrong with that. But we want to walk through it. We don't want to be stuck in it. The last disconnection that we feel as individuals is the spiritual disconnection. And our culture has done everything it can to remove God from our lives. You know, some of us may remember the famous cover of Time magazine that said, "Is God dead?" Right? What we have done our best to do is to prop man up as being the greatest of all that is. In Unity, we talk about being one with God. But that's very, very, very different than saying we are God. We are all that there is. There's nothing else. There is no transcendent power in the universe. We are the penultimate creation. It's all about us. That leads us down a very dark and dangerous path. And even saying, well, okay, culturally, yeah, we have a church thing, we do that. When we attempt to confine our spirituality to a religion that's basically the practice of showing up once a week for an hour, some of us don't even make it there every week, I'm not naming names. We're left spiritually empty, spiritually hollow, because it's not something that is feeding us each and every day. We are suffering from spiritual starvation. And I love this. Spiritual starvation is the spiritual disconnect that feeds and fuels all the others. You know, that's really probably the secret to why 12-step works. You know, yes, it's designed to end addiction, which is maybe a mental and body thing, but the root cause is spiritual and the root cure is spiritual. We can't live disconnected from our spirituality. So what I invite each and every one of us to do is to look for those places in our lives where we are disconnected from ourselves and begin there. And at the same time, look at those places that we are disconnected from others that may be different others, and see if we can't draw them into our circle, into our inner sanctum. If you're white, invite a black person into your home or invite them to church. If you're black, invite a white person into your home. Invite him to church. If you're gay, invite a straight person. If you're straight, invite a gay person. And you can mix all those up any way you want. Be willing to listen to someone, to break bread with someone, to share with someone that appears to be different, and find out how much alike we all are. Because the truth and the bottom line about inclusivity is we are one. Please join me in prayer. This morning, I want to share an affirmation. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be at peace. May we be well. May we be safe. May we be happy. May we be at peace. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at peace. Please join me together. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be at peace. May we be well. May we be safe. May we be happy. May we be at peace. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at peace. So let it be.
So all the songs that you've heard today are